Hello, I'm Lauren Taylor. Thank you very much indeed for all being here this morning. This is Adam MacDonald, the director of Sky One. Welcome. And a year into the job, Adam MacDonald's life is good. You've got share is up, peak viewing is growing, and the programming has garnered critical acclaim, followed by award success. Famously a customer-focused broadcaster, you've settled into the new role by commissioning a raft of ideas with heart that appeal to the mass family market. From comedy to drama, entertainment to factual, the broad slate certainly has broad appeal, but is it at risk of diluting the brand? Do the audiences and the industry at large actually understand what the channel really stands for? Has he solved the 8 p.m. commissioning conundrum? And 12 months on, does Adam MacDonald feel that he's set his viewers' pulses racing as he intended when he took the job? Thank you very much indeed. So, welcome.
That's very good. I love that.
I just want to, you're quite an avid tweeter, aren't you? And we've got a tweet, I think, here somewhere. This is your first day at work tweet. I just wanted to ask you, what's the job been like? Has it lived up to all it promised? Has it been a ride, as you described there, a fun ride?
It's funny kind of looking back at that. I can't believe that was a year ago. And it's interesting I use the word fun ride because it's, for the first for the first 3 or 4 months, I spent a lot of time talking to people about Sky One, what they thought Sky One was like, and trying to kind of encapsulate what I wanted to do with the channel in a phrase, just a phrase, kind of a strapline, just for me really, so I could kind of understand the channel and then kind of communicate that to people in kind of internally at Sky and in the industry. And I was kind of, lots and lots of ideas were going through my head, and I had kind of one morning where I snuck out the back of Sky and have a kind of sneaky little cigarette and kind of trying to work out what I wanted to do with the channel. And I came up with this phrase, enjoy the ride, which for me kind of encapsulates, what I want to do with the channel. So it's kind of interesting to say I was pretty much there on day one.
in a word, yes or no, have you enjoyed the ride?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and your mission statement, we mentioned there, sort of quicken the pulse of the viewer.
Yeah.
A year in, have you achieved that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's there on the channel most of the time. I think kind of what I wanted to do with the channel. When I started, I was I was kind of looking for those shows that really kind of encapsulated what I wanted to do with the channel and what the channel meant to me and to the customers. And I remember thinking about A League of Their Own, and particularly James Corden in A League of Their Own, and the way he just bellows with laughter and kind of that real energy on the channel there when that's on. And I wanted that kind of vibrancy to be more consistent on the channel, I think. And I think we're kind of making good progress there. I think it's there a lot of the time, and with the stuff we are commissioning now, I think it'll be a kind of more consistent flavour.
So we'll just introduce something that the audience need to know about for this for the future of the session, because we want to get you involved as much as possible. We've got an app that's working at the moment. I think we can see the setup. So that's how you download it, and that's how you get online and put your questions, and hopefully you'll all have done this already, so you can be ahead of the game and put in some questions. So we'll keep that going throughout, and I've got it here so I can, later on once they've come in, I can ask some of the questions that have come in from the audience and from elsewhere. But in the meantime, just to get into the spirit of it, we asked you earlier what TV character you were most like, so tell us who it is.
Well, I've been asked this a couple of times over the years, and I used to love Mr. Ben when I was a child. Oh, bloody hell. I should have seen that coming, shouldn't I? Yeah, Mr. Ben, and a very nice fridge, apparently, I have. Yeah, Mr. Ben. And I think it's, I used to think, and I still think that, I'm a kind of ordinary guy, live an ordinary life. I get up in the morning, put my hat on, come to work, and have these kind of extraordinary adventures and meet extraordinarily talented people and kind of have these wonderful experiences. And then kind of go home, take my hat off, sit down, watch a telly, and I think, oh God, I was involved in that. So yes, Mr. Ben. For younger people in the audience, he was an icon many years ago. And
so that's just an illustration that we can ask you anything apparently on this app. But you mentioned a moment ago James Corden and A League of Their Own. I'd quite like to show a little clip of that just to remind the audience about. So we'd have a bottom on screen there just to wake everyone up at this time in the morning. It's before the watershed, but hopefully that's all right. This is your channel-defining clip, if you like. Yeah. Why is it so emblematic, do you think, of the network?
Well, I think for a variety of reasons. I mean, we spoke about energy. I mean, the four things I talk about when I talk about Sky One, energy, joy, heart, and laughter. They're the kind of the big four kind of central strands of its DNA that are very, very important to the channel. And I think kind of A League of Their Own, has all of those. And I think kind of just joy is the thing I love about that. And even in that clip, kind of just Niall kind of just opening his mouth and laughing kind of in that uninhibited way. It's really kind of confectious, not confectious, what's the word I'm after?
Contagious.
Contagious. Infectious and contagious. Yeah. Confectious.
But do you think, it's the television equivalent of Ebola. Do you think that there's an over-reliance on this show as a brand, though? I mean, do you think that people... No?
No. I mean, we do one season a year now. There's kind of 8 shows a year. We've got the, it's been a year since the last season, so we're really kind of making it a special piece in the schedule. And we've got, I think we kind of have done a deal now to take it up to kind of 10 series, which is extraordinary for the channel. So no, absolutely not a reliance. And we've got a whole bunch of other shows kind of around that kind of have that flavour.
10 series, but there's a question mark, isn't there, over the future of James Corden's involvement in it? Because there's big rumours that he's heading off to the States to do
I don't know
Late
if you saw,
Show.
There was a piece in, I forget what paper it was, a couple of days ago, where the headline was, "I'm never leaving the show, James Corden."
Can he do both? But,
sorry?
I mean, so you're saying that he's definitely not going to the States?
No, I think he can do both.
Can
I don't
he?
know if he's going to the States. I'm not sure he knows, but no, he can do, I mean, kind of, according to the papers, he's definitely staying. I mean, he kind of says to us, and he says in the paper, he has more fun doing that show than any other show. So,
is he the key to it, though? I mean, if you were to lose
no,
him,
I don't think so. I mean, if you just look at that, the panel, we've got Jack and we've got Jamie and we've got Freddie, and shows can survive, but we're pretty hopeful that he'll be kind of integral to it. We've got a new the next recording is just a couple of months away, so no, we're pretty confident on that one.
And you've highlighted that 8 p.m. is a slot that you're looking at specifically. Why do you see that as such an opportunity for your channel?
Well, a couple of reasons, really. I mean, the main one, I've said this before, but 8 o'clock used to be, I know there's a kind of 8 o'clock session going on at the moment, but 8 o'clock used to be a time in British television where there was real innovation. It was where the docusoaps came from, it was where the kind of the leisure game shows came from, kind of big quiz initiatives like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was a really fertile area of the schedule. And it just seemed to me that over the last kind of 6 to 7 years, it's become a little bit predictable in the sense that kind of, the main channels, they have kind of more and more hours of soaps. And on the other channels, the BBC Twos and Channel 4s, they have a kind of, they have strands that have been there for a long time that do, pretty well, and people like them. But it just seems that there's fewer and fewer new shows there. And I really get the sense that there's hunger from the audience for kind of new content there, and so that's kind of one of the reasons we're kind of moving into that, to kind of refresh that, hopefully kind of refresh that area of the schedule. And
you mentioned new content. You've got a list here of a raft of commissions for that 8 p.m. slot. Fright Club, Relatively Clever, The Sunset, A Kings and Queens of Speech, Outlines, Welcome to My Garden, and Plum Pictures, Flintoff, Lord of the Fries. What do you think all these shows have in common, and how do they solve that kind of problem of the 8 o'clock slot?
So I think the this big message of enjoy the ride, joy, heart, humour. I think they all have that. So what we're looking at in that area of the schedule is, I'm fascinated, and it goes back to this phrase, enjoy the ride. And that works in one sense, which is the channel should be like a ride, should be like a kind of the best theme park. People should absolutely, kind of be thrilled about switching on the channel. But also it works for me in another area, which is that sense of, I've just been on holiday with my daughters, and we did a zip lining, and my youngest daughter came off the back of it, and she off the first one, and she went YOLO at the end, and everybody kind of burst out laughing as if how naff it was. But that sense of just trying to squeeze in as much joy and as much thrill and as much energy and as much worthwhileness for your time on Earth, and that's kind of what we're after at 8 o'clock. It's that I'm fascinated by. I'm just fascinated by the things people do, at weekends and in the evenings to kind of bring energy, into their life. Where do they go to find their mojo? What do they do that really excites them?
But is it risky to focus it just on that slot?
No, and I'm not focusing just on that slot. Throughout, particularly kind of the non-scripted area, that's everything we're looking to develop kind of has to have that kind of element to it. But I think that will be a consistent feel right across 8 o'clock.
Stuart Murphy said last year that ratings aren't really how you judge a show on Sky One. Now that you're in the driving seat, how do you measure that success? What is it that you will say is a success?
It's very simple, really. And we're a subscription service. People pay money to watch us, and so the one big measure of success is just whether they get value out of their subscription. Absolutely central. Kind of how much do they value the channel? How much do they love the channel? How passionate they are about the channel? We have a whole range of kind of metrics within Sky that kind of measure that. And so it's very clear that actually, if the channel's unsuccessful, then our customers are not satisfied with the channel, and there's a risk of them kind of ending their subscription. So it's very, very focused on value.
And is it hard for you? I mean, you've inherited a lot of stuff that wasn't commissioned by you, the Smoke, Duck Quacks Don't Echo, Harrow. How do these fit into your vision, and will you be recommissioning any of them?
I can't remember which ones you've said, but yeah, I mean, I said when I started, and it's very important to me that I've always been kind of slightly suspicious of channel controllers who come along and kind of get rid of stuff, and it just seems slightly disrespectful, really, to the viewers and to the customers who are watching the channel. So I was very clear when I started that I really wanted to spend time analysing what are the core strands on the channel that really kind of resonate with the customers. And so the first 3 or 4 months of my time is absolutely identifying what those shows are and securing them. And so, there was a recommission of Got to Dance, Stella, Trolled, A League of Their Own, kind of that 3-year deal. So I spent a lot of the time actually, actively securing, the shows that were there. Because I think, the interesting thing about Sky One is probably for the first time in its life, in its 25 years, it has a huge kind of slate of returning brands now. So we've got, I think it was something like 10 shows that are on their 3rd or more series. Got to Dance Series 5, Strike Back Series 5. And so, I think it's in a maturing stage now. And I think I was very keen to kind of, approach the channel in a way which is kind of balancing those kind of big, well-loved returning brands with the new, fresh content.
And is there anything that hasn't worked that surprised you?
I think everything surprises me that doesn't work, in the sense that I think there's, all the stuff we've been played over the last year has been really, really good. And so when things don't work, you kind of think, oh, that's a shame. And I think it's kind of one of the toughest things, particularly in this job compared to other jobs I've done. The decision not to continue shows is kind of tougher on Sky One, because actually on other channels I've worked with, actually the ratings are, very important to that decision about whether to continue or not to continue. But it's more nuanced here, and it's more about value scores, and it's more about taking that judgment about how valued those shows are that might not necessarily get the big ratings, but actually how valued they are to the subscribers. So it's a more nuanced decision about what to bring back and what not to bring back.
And in terms of commissioning, talking of nuancing, we're going to have a quick look at a clip that you consider one of your riskiest commissions for the year. Okay, well, that was...
It's the future, squirrels.
Wild Things, which hasn't aired yet, so that's a genuine sneak peek for our audience here. Talk us through the commissioning of that. What on earth was going through your mind? Yeah, well,
this was... we had to select a few clips, and this clip was the one that came under the banner of What on Earth Was I Thinking?
Yeah.
So we've announced this today. It's a show called Wild Things. It's made by Gary Moynihan, who did Banzai, out of IWC. And it's just, I think in the press release, I described it as a big daft slice of genius. It's just bonkers, but bonkers in that kind of surreal way. So the idea is it's a game show set in the woodland with couples who have to navigate each other through a set of tasks in this wood. One of the couples is on a microphone. The other couple is dressed as a squirrel or a fox or a badger, and they can't see, and they have a camera in their nose, and they get directed through these games they have to play by their partner. So it's kind of like getting into that world of arguing where you're going in a car, but actually they're in squirrel costumes, yeah. Yeah.
So and your expectations are, I mean, presumably this is something which could go either way. People either love it or hate it. So what's your expectation for where it'll fit?
That's right. People either love it or hate it. Yeah, I mean, it kind of came in quite early in my time on the channel, and I was watching it. I was thinking, what on earth is this? And then kind of there was a pilot kind of sizzle for about 20 minutes, and then you started laughing, and then you couldn't stop laughing, and at the end you kind of thought, God, that was the most enjoyable kind of 20 minutes I've spent. So, you know, I don't know. Every commission's a risk. Even kind of the most cautious of formats, you don't know whether it's going to work. It's a risk. So this seems kind of a riskier end of the risky spectrum.
Okay.
But it's part of that whole. It's joyful. It's funny. It's probably the silliest thing we're doing. But we're going to play it probably on a Sunday next to The Simpsons in this kind of early evening slot that I identified as being kind of quite a kind of hot spot for us, and particularly for the family audience. So there's this slot on Sunday off the back of The Simpsons, where all the other channels are kind of doing antique shows or wildlife shows or kind of news, religion. And this is the slot I'm very keen to develop, just thinking about the guys here in the audience about, what areas I'm interested in and what areas that are still to be commissioned. I'm very interested in this Sunday tea time slot. Okay. And that sense of, you get to Sunday, it feels like homework time. Kind of a lot of the channels feel a bit like homework, and you don't really want to do your homework. And so it's that sense of kind of, screw the homework, let's have fun, let's extend the weekend, let's ignore the fact that Monday's upon us, and let's just have a kind of crazy time. And I want more of those kind of shows, not necessarily in squirrel costumes, more in that sense of kind of ignore the weekend, let's still kind of revel and rejoice in that wonderful feeling we've been having at the weekend with our family.
Now, talking of family and sort of fun and also taking risks, the clip which I think you have considered your riskiest, I think is the next one we're going to see, which is 50 Ways to Kill Your Mammy. Yeah.
Yes.
So why is this a risk for you?
Well, I think it's a risk because it's new talent. I think kind of that kind of first and foremost is the reason it's a big risk. So Baz Ashmawi, he's relatively famous in Ireland, has been doing kind of travelogues, adventure travelogues there for about 10 years. But for the rest of the UK, he's completely unknown. And we're putting a huge amount of kind of promotion behind it. So it's launching next Monday, I think, off the back of the first live Got to Dance. And if anybody's been watching the channel, we've been trailing it to death, really. And we've put a huge amount of promotion behind it, a huge amount of energy, just because we love it so much.
And you mentioned Baz Ashmawi. Were you consciously searching for the new Carl Pilkington?
No, not really. I think, well, yes and no. I mean, we weren't consciously searching, but we know that vibe really works for the channel, really works for the audience. And people kind of forget that Carl, other than the blogs, was relatively unknown when he started. So there's a good kind of legacy that Celia Taylor and the team have in this world of kind of funny, factual and kind of travelogue. So we knew that world was worked really well for the audience. And when Baz came in, we kind of really loved him. I mean, he kind of just, set the screen on alight, his kind of amazing character. So we knew that he was kind of a potential. But then the big issue was actually how can we make a new travel show, a new comedy travel show in this space feel fresh? And it took Celia and Siobhan Mulholland, who commissioned it, quite a while to kind of back and forth with Baz about the idea. And then it kind of came to him literally. I mean, that was kind of not the actual moment, but literally a moment very much like that, where he was with his mum Nancy and talking about it, and she said she fancied a bit of the action. And the idea kind of came out from that. And
who do you think the viewer is for this? What's the
the other interesting thing, why it's really important for me, is I spend a lot of time talking about family, and so family is incredibly important for Sky One. It kind of what distinguishes Sky One from all the other channels. We talked a bit about the identity of Sky One, which I can talk about more, but kind of really it's the family aspect of the channel that is one of the main distinctive bits of its personality. But I was very keen. I talk about it as being kind of a channel, an entertaining channel, energetic channel for modern families. And I use the word modern family quite specifically because to conjure up, another one of our major shows, Modern Family. And in that show, it's the point is that families aren't just kind of young parents with young kids. Families we're all in families. And I was very interested in actually that notion of the grandparents being kind of, you know, welcome on the channel as well. And this sense of actually, you know, the joy of family is so important to me, and the joy of watching television in your family. There's a real premium in doing that. That's where, you know, I've said that's where entertainment, you know, provides the real legacy in people's kind of memories. I used to watch this show with my grand. I used to watch this show with my kids. And so, you know, it speaks to this big thing about joy and about energy and about living life to the full and celebrating it with your family. And it makes the point to the audience, I think, that actually families are broader than, you know, the audience know that, and we're just kind of recognising that, I think, with this commission.
Okay, we're going to take a question from the app here. The question is, you have a broad slate, which is the hardest genre to commission for?
I think I wouldn't call it the hardest, but the one we're kind of thinking about most at the moment is entertainment, and the kind of the big new entertainment event. And I felt for a while that the entertainment as a genre is ready for the next big turn of the dial. And it's really not since kind of or kind of Pop Idol really started that, you know, that was a big fresh vibe in the entertainment genre. And really that's kind of been a huge kind of success back then. But since then there's not been anything kind of that's kind of redefined that genre. And I think all channels are kind of looking for that. And I know everybody that works in the area is kind of looking to do that. But it's really difficult. And it's kind of easier to kind of develop and commission another talent show. And the really interesting thing for Sky is that, you know, this thing I've talked about is that our customers pay for us. And they want to have something that they're not getting elsewhere. And I think particularly in the area of entertainment, that's something that that I really want to focus on, that I kind of think if anybody's going to crack the big, new, fresh entertainment show, we're the ones that ought to be trying. And so that's our big thing. And you know, for people who kind of know me in the audience over the years, you know, I tend to be pretty specific on the types of shows I'm after, in the knowledge that actually it's a big creative environment, and actually you'll never get exactly what you ask for, and that's good. But actually to kind of keep a focus on your request in the knowledge that actually there'll be a kind of big bonkers range of shows that come around that. You know, like Wild Things, I didn't ask for a show about squirrels, but it did encapsulate that sense of joy and energy and bonkersness that, you know, is kind of what I want to do. But in this area of entertainment, I am kind of saying, do you know what, I'm not entirely sure what we're after. But what we're not after is another talent show. You know, we've got a great one that's running for us at the moment. We don't want to have another one. And, you know, we're looking in other areas. So, you know, so I've said to people that, you know, think about that Sunday tea time. Okay. Think about that sense of you know, that vibe I want to kind of conjure up with the audience. And is there a show that kind of taps into that a bit more overtly? Just one more question at this stage from the app. It's a bit of a personal one. Yeah. It said, how is the commute to Skyberia? Do you know what? It's rather good, actually. I was saying earlier, it's the first time in my career that I've driven to work, so I'm still kind of getting a bit of excitement about listening to the radio rather than reading the paper. You have to leave a bit early, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. And now I'm kind of dropping my daughter off. She goes to school early in the morning, so actually I'm the one that gets her up and takes her to the bus stop and then carries on. So it gives me the opportunity of speaking to one of my daughters in the morning. Oh, well, that's always very nice. Well, I want to talk a little bit about brand identity now, and we've talked about, obviously, Sky having a variety of programming. Do you think it's with this broad slate, it's harder to pin down the identity of the channel, and kind of people turn on and they think, oh, there's this, oh, there's also that. You know, do they have so. a sort of... You know, it's a broad channel, and like with, you know, demographically, it's a broad channel, and so with broad channels, it's always a bit more of a challenge to kind of, you know, to absolutely kind of sum up what a channel's about. But you know, for me, I think that, you know, when I talk about energy, when I talk about joy, when I talk about heart, and shows addressed to kind of this multi-generational audience, that for me is kind of, you know, pretty succinctly in my mind sums up the channel. And how do you, I mean, if you, with that, you mentioned the word energy, and it's a bit of a vague concept, isn't it? So if producers are pitching to you, how do they filter their ideas to make sure that they can... Do you think it's a vague concept, well, energy? It's hard to pin down, isn't it? I don't think so. It's energy. It's energetic. Mm-hmm. It's quick. It's quick-witted. It's kind of active. It's kind of running around. It's kind of, you know, it's not slow. It's not ponderous. It's not kind of deliberating on the bad miserable side of the life, that we know it's out there. I mean, for us, life is, for me, when I talk about this roller coaster, life is full of ups and downs. We know that it's full of darkness and it's full of horror, and other channels kind of focus on that, and so they should. But we're not going to. We want to kind of focus on the joy and the goodness in life and the goodness in people.
So if you had to kind of, to sum up this brand identity thing, if you were a shop,
yeah.
would you be M&S or Primark?
I'd be neither. I wouldn't be a shop. I don't know what I'd be in the shop world. I've just done a holiday in Costa Rica, and it was an activity holiday. First time we've done that with the kids. So every day we got up early and we went out and we went zip wiring or whitewater rafting or kind of on a big kind of nature walks. And I suppose if anything, it's a bit like that. It's kind of an active holiday, rather than, I don't know, a cultural holiday. It's energetic. It's kind of quite straightforward.
You also talked about the business of Sky being close to its customers, and
yeah.
you're always careful to call them customers rather than viewers.
Yeah.
What's actually meant by that?
Because they pay for us. I mean, it's funny
but
because
being close to them.
Being close to them.
Yeah.
Well, it's just everywhere I've worked. They've talked about kind of understanding the audience, and it's only really at Sky where you kind of think it's so central to what we have to do, because they don't have to pay for us and they choose to. So we really need to understand who they are, what they're after, on the platform, what they're not getting elsewhere, what they kind of seek to kind of value, and so we spend a huge amount of time researching them, talking to them, understanding kind of the shows they really value and the shows they don't value. And reflecting them, on screen. And I think, sorry, just to kind of finish on that, the other thing, which is kind of which is part of the 8 o'clock strategy, is actually I noticed that on the channel, up until recently, we don't really have viewers on our channel. We don't really have many ordinary folk on the channel. The channel is full of these amazing stars and amazing talent in the comedy and drama, and in fact, in kind of Carl and Ross. But actually, it's only when we've started commissioning these 8 o'clock shows and getting them back, we're seeing kind of the Sky One audience there. And I think that's really important for the Sky One viewer to actually see themselves on screen and see themselves having fun on screen.
And would you consider a brand refresh at all for Sky One?
I mean, I've never really known what the word refresh means, really. I mean, kind of, will we in time have new idents? Possibly, possibly not. I think that, one of the things I want to do is, when I talk about the channel being more consistently energetic, I think that applies to the spaces in between the programmes as well. And so we have been working on kind of our idents and our promos and our continuity to get that sense of energy as well. I'm not planning a kind of a big refresh, because I think Sky One is pretty much kind of there at the moment. It's a case of making it more consistent.
So if you were to look at Sky in 5 years' time, do you think it would look very different, or do you think it would look pretty similar?
I think it will have, I think you'd recognise its DNA, yeah. And I think it would be, I think it would be a more consistently joyful and energetic place, yeah.
What about, I mean, we've had BBC Three moving online.
Yeah.
How does that affect the strategy, if at all, for Sky?
I think, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it affects the strategy. I think, I think that, what we're doing on Sky in terms of the different platforms and different ways we can give viewers and customers a way of kind of consuming our content is quite important to us. And so kind of the on-demand world, the Sky Plus world, Sky Go, Now TV, there's lots of different options that viewers can choose to kind of use our programming, and that's very important to us. I think it's interesting that with when we launched 24, we launched it in the middle of the night, simultaneously with the east coast of the States. And so we played it kind of simultaneously in the middle of the night for those hardcore fans who are desperate to kind of see it. We played it in its kind of regular 9 o'clock slot, and we made it available online, on demand. And it's fascinating to see how the different groups of viewers were consuming it in different ways. And actually, the biggest audience group for that first show was people who kind of recorded it and chose to watch it when they wanted to watch it.
Do you think there is a possibility that where the Sky One catalogue moves 100% online?
Not in the foreseeable future, no. I think kind of, we are just future-proofing ourselves, and so we're providing a whole range of different ways that people can consume the programmes we provide. And so we'll see, how the audience move.
And do you think there'll be more sort of online opportunities, like kind of premiering stuff online?
Yeah, I think so. We're looking at in all of that. I mean, we do premiere stuff online. So 50 Ways to Kill Your Mammy is actually on, on demand at the moment. So, if anybody liked the look of that, they can, they can watch it before it plays on Monday. So that's very important for us as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to move on to the year ahead now. Yeah. And what are you most looking forward to in the next year?
Just kind of getting great ideas from you guys. I mean, I'd love to talk a bit more about kind of what we are after. And so, I think I'm looking forward to the shows we're commissioning playing. I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of evolves the channel. But really, just want to get more and more ideas coming through in that area, and in drama and in comedy.
And on that, I mean, do you think there's an opportunity for new talent on Sky One? I mean, how often are you pitched new talent? We've talked about obviously Baz and so on, but does that happen often, or is he the exception?
No, it happens a lot. And again, it's a question of kind of balance. So we just commissioned my first big natural history special with a new guy called Patrick Irie, who's just amazing, a new young wildlife expert. And again, when we saw him, pretty unknown, pretty fresh to television, he was just amazing, and it was such a thrill to kind of go, God, no, we're going to go for Patrick and kind of go big in a big kind of authored piece from him. So yeah, and with Baz, really love kind of new talent, really keen for new talent, but also love our big existing talent as well.
And on that front, I mean, are you happy with the established talent? Would you prefer them to be exclusive, or are you happy for them to be on other channels as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always I'm always nervous of exclusive deals. The ideal thing is to have talent that don't have to work for you exclusively, but who enjoy working with you so much that they choose to. And that's kind of the ideal point. Do I mind kind of if James or Davina are on other channels? No, of course I don't mind, and I don't think viewers mind really. But what I'd love to get to, and I think we've got to that with kind of James and what he's been saying about A League of Their Own, and Davina says this about Got to Dance as well, which is when they do stuff for us, it's the stuff they really, really enjoy doing. They really kind of put their heart into it, and I think you can see that in their eyes, and that's what I'd love to have. Yeah. And
just in terms of the talent, there seems to be a lack of female frontline talent in your factual series. Are you looking to improve on that in the future?
Yeah, I think that's probably right, actually. I think I think with Nancy, we're kind of making a move in that direction. I kind of think she, I'm really crossing my fingers. It feels like she might become a big star. We're commissioning in the 8 o'clock slot 4 or 5 studio shows, quiz shows, and I'm very keen to kind of get some women presenters there. We've just got Connie Huck, who's doing King of the Nerds, which is a new commission we're doing on again in that kind of Sunday tea time. So I think I'm not actively looking for more travel shows because we've got kind of Ross and Carl and now hopefully Baz and Nancy. But I think in that big kind of 9 o'clock quirky, funny, factual space, I think you're right. I think we could do with a few more women, yeah.
And on the diversity front, Sky One, you've just really revealed a push to ensure that 20% of the on-screen talent and writing teams are black and Asian minority individuals, as well as at least one senior production executive. So with the current shows exempt from the quota, what would be the real impact?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, kind of, it really in terms, I mean, I commissioned, I think, something like 14 shows in the last kind of 4 or 5 months, and they're just going into production. So those shows, we'll apply that kind of 20% to those shows as well. And also,
and is the ball in the producer's court?
Sorry?
Is the ball in the producer's court in terms of finding the talent? Or
I think there's 2 balls. They've got one and we've got one. Yeah. No, it's an industry thing. We've kind of been very bold, I believe, in saying, no, we're going to make this happen and we need you guys to help us do that. And I think that 20% overtly, and 20% is it's a big number, and that overtly applies to the new commissions, the new things on screen. But we're not going to kind of turn our back on on kind of the existing shows. And when there's a cast refresh, like we just brought in 4 new members of the cast for Trolleyed, which we're doing at the moment, and that's a very diverse new group of people, both in terms of ethnicity and age and disability as well.
So in terms of for you, for trying to achieve those targets, I mean, are you worried about putting the onus on producers?
I don't think we are putting the onus on producers. We're going to be working with it as well, and we're kind of insisting upon it. And it's not that difficult to, I mean, it's not that difficult to have a concerted effort. So, for instance, for the 8 o'clock shows, I'm commissioning, I think, probably about 5 studio shows with 5 presenters. And so 20% of that is one, isn't it? That's not difficult, and that's a minimum. We'll probably have more than one.
Yeah. You say it's not difficult, but why it's, in that case, why haven't producers and channels done it so far? I mean, it's been an issue for long enough, hasn't it?
I know it's been an issue, and that's we're all kind of, asking ourselves why, that kind of that's that kind of unconscious bias of to kind of take people who are very similar to you. I think Stuart's talked about this at length, and everybody has. It's a very liberal, progressive industry we work in. It's a creative industry, yet we've not been very good at that. Why is that? I don't know. But one of the solutions.
Are you able to reveal today when we'll see the changes on screen? Do you think for that?
Well, I think I think kind of from now on, really. We've got Baz on Monday, who's half Egyptian. I don't want to go around and saying we've got this member, this piece of talent, that piece of talent. We've got to Dance on at the moment, which is kind of we talk about that as being effortlessly diverse, and that's kind of wondrous kind of show. And so you turn on our channel now, and it looks pretty healthy. So every new commission that's going to be coming through, as a group, will, the intention is that's going to hit those targets. Yeah.
And in terms of people who might be here, sort of wanting to pitch to you, we've talked a little bit about some of the words that set you alight. But what should they remember about your brand when they come to pitch to you?
Energy, energy, joy, heart. I think we talked about. Genres that are kind of that are challenging. I talked about entertainment. Drama is another big thing for us. That really, and I think when I talk about energy and joy and heart, I think it's kind of relatively easy to capture that in the non-scripted space and in the comedy space. And I think in drama, I think that's kind of more challenging. And so kind of Cameron and Anne and myself are working kind of with the drama community to kind of try and work out quite what a drama is that kind of fits into that channel brief. We've just announced today our next big Christmas drama, which is called Agatha Raisin and the Quiche of Death, based on Agatha Raisin books, with Ashley Jensen starring in it. And that has a real kind of verve and exuberance to it, a real kind of modernity and cheekiness, which I'm very, very excited about. And so, we're really working with kind of the drama guys to say, okay, what is a drama? What is a returnable drama series? Because the challenge is the word drama. It needs to be dramatic, so it can't be joyful all the time.
And in terms of you mentioned drama. What's the breakdown between the genres? I mean, how many hours do you have for drama? Do you know? I mean, what's the kind of ratio of stuff that people will get?
I don't. Kind of the great thing about Sky is our budgets are pretty flexible. And so kind of it can kind of respond to ideas. So, we're looking to have, at least 2 big high volume returning new dramas in the schedule with a Christmas piece, with a kind of continuing one as well. And, we're talking kind of commissions of kind of 10, 15 at length. So we're looking for, kind of increasing the volume of drama we have on the channel.
And how important is it for those to be returning series? I mean, is that something that you look for, particularly when you commission?
Yeah. Throughout everything, I think, is kind of a big premium on returning. And I think that is the case particularly with drama. And I think, I could do with more drama that has that kind of what Cameron Roach calls the kind of the reset button for each episode, that kind of that episodic drama where it's not a serial, where if there's a serial element, it's kind of worn quite lightly across the series, but actually it has that kind of self-contained reset. So Agatha Raisin, we commissioned that as a Christmas piece. There's 25 books in that series. So if that works, that can kind of come back as a kind of self-contained run of series. So that's very important for us, yeah.
So that's one of the dramas that you've just announced today. And another one, which is actually not a commission, but more of an acquisition, is The Flash. Let's have a quick... tell us a bit more about this one.
Yeah, so this is our big new acquisition from the screenings, The Flash. It's a kind of sister show to another big successful show we have called Arrow. I think kind of the interesting thing there, so it was for us, the big must-have show of the screenings. It was inconceivable that, because of its linkage with Arrow, that it would go elsewhere. And for me, again, even looking at that image, big, brash, exuberant, colourful, joyful show. And so in this world of kind of what dramas we're looking for, UK dramas, again, the Sky One audience is interesting because it watches as much American drama as it watches UK drama on the channel, and so our audience are kind of pretty savvy and canny about watching the best of the mainstream American content, and so we'd love to have UK drama that has that feels in some way a sibling to the American shows we have, and so a lot of UK drama can be. Not as orange as Flash, being polite, and so we're after kind of UK shows that have that sense of exuberance and joyfulness as the American shows have, but still kind of retaining that UK sensibility of authorship and a kind of grittiness to it, but in that more kind of high concept world. So that's kind of what we're chewing over at the moment.
Okay. Just want to put one of the questions from the app to you now, which is how will Sky's potential loss of football rights affect Sky One? I mean, clearly there's not a direct correlation, but no. There's the suggestion that might be a problem. How do you answer that question?
I think kind of it doesn't really. I think the really interesting for me over the last year is when BT picked up the Champions League rights. That actually the response in the press was. Without us kind of pushing that was Sky now has a huge range of content across kind of both sport and kind of original content, but actually we've kind of future-proofed ourselves for kind of those eventualities. And there was it seemed to me a moment where there's a real recognition of the amount of kind of UK content in drama and comedy that we're providing in kind of Sky Atlantic as well, and a recognition that actually our subscribers are kind of joining us and getting value out of that content as well as the sport, as well as the movies, as well as the news. Yeah, I thought that was actually kind of quite a reassuring moment, bizarrely.
Well, Sky has very publicly revealed a spend on commissions, saying investment would reach £600 million a year on original non-sport content by 2014. Yeah. Is there much of that left this year?
This year, well, there's not much left this year because we've commissioned it all. But going forward, yeah, I mean, we're still kind of hungry. We've still kind of got money in our pockets, burning holes, kind of wanting, new commissions. And on Sky One, the level of investment is incredibly healthy going forward. Like I said, in the last 6 months, I've commissioned 14 shows, and we've still got kind of gaps in 14, 15 and beyond.
I mean, when this figure was announced, Sophie Turner-Lang at the time said it's not a cap, it's the floor, but then she left. Yeah. Has the promise gone with her? Or, I mean, has
of course not, no.
And so can you give us a figure for 2015?
No, I can't give you a figure for 2015. I mean, I've got a budget for 2015, and no channels kind of publish their figures.
But you did have that big public figure of 600 million. So is there any reason why you shouldn't tell us?
I don't know really. I mean, kind of going forward there might be. But what we are saying is that kind of 600 is still a floor, and the stuff we're commissioning across all the channels is still kind of going up. So in that sense, kind of the investment in the content and our kind of eagerness and hunger to kind of commission more is there across all the channels.
I want to move on now to the actual kind of process for producers working with Sky. One of the big things you've looked at in the past year is your indie working relationship. After the festival survey last year, Sky commissioned its own, and as a result, you pledged to acknowledge ideas within 2 working days with a full response promised within 2 weeks non-scripted or 6 weeks scripted. How's that gone? Are you sticking to the promise?
Well, we're trying to. I mean, you don't make a promise and then ignore it. We're trying our best and doing what we can, and I know we've kind of made progress in that area. I think one of the things we have done. We did our own survey that kind of complemented the one that was here last year, and one of the big things that came out of that is communication and getting a kind of better sense of how the channels differentiate from one another and what their precise needs. And so we've been putting a lot of energy on kind of communication flow. And we did a big Indie Day a month or so ago, which is the first time we've done one for a couple of years. as part of that kind of communication process that we kind of got quite good feedback on. Well, very good feedback actually. So we're very pleased with that. So communication about our needs is very important.
I mean, I know that there's been a survey again this year, but we're not going to talk specifically about that because I think Stuart Murphy is going to deal with it separately. But there's one concern that comes out, which is that Sky should be clearer in laying out the needs and brief the indies better. Do you think you're doing that?
Yeah, I think we did it's kind of, I don't know, it'd be interesting to know what the audience think. I think we did a pretty impressive session a month or so ago. That was certainly the feedback we got. It felt good at the time. Part of this, is to kind of communicate my needs as well. It's a continual process, and it's something that we all kind of need to do, again and again and again. Sometimes I kind of, sit on these panels and I listen to myself talking about joy and energy, and I thought, God, how many times have I said that? But, you have to keep saying it again and again. I think I've been pretty specific on the needs of the channel and what I want the channel to feel like. Okay. And so apologies if you've kind of heard those phrases before, but, it's very important to me. And
you've bought into Love Productions. How do you think that'll...
Not me personally.
Well, Sky One has. Yes. And how do you think that'll affect commissioning? Do you have any quotas on that, or
no? I mean, it's lots of kind of broadcasters kind of acquire shows, nothing to do with me, that process. There won't be any it won't impact my day-to-day job. It won't impact the commissioner's day-to-day job. It's the thing we always say, and it's really, really true, that we respond to the best ideas and are keen for to get the people here to actually kind of bring their ideas to us first, please, rather than anybody else.
And you also, in that venue, you recently signed a development deal with Rough Cut TV, which they'll develop exclusively for your channel.
No, for it's Sky Vision. So not for the channels. That's a Sky Vision deal. Yeah. So actually, the Rough Cut deal and even the Love deal, that's part of the Sky Vision strategy. It's not part of it. There's no quotas for the channels.
And is the idea to keep doing more deals like this? Is this kind of part of your strategy?
I don't know. It's not my strategy. It's the Sky Vision strategy. So,
but presumably it affects what you're. I mean, you're.
It doesn't affect. It doesn't affect at all. No. I mean, every broadcaster has, has companies it owns. When I was at Channel 4, I commissioned Come Dine With Me from ITV Studios. And so, kind of the BBC commissioned shows from, from other indies that are owned elsewhere. So it really doesn't impact on your day-to-day job whatsoever.
And in terms of your day-to-day job, how much do you, kind of what ends up being commissioned? What's the ratio, I mean, from development?
Well, it depends, kind of. I think in pure development, in terms of what we fund for development, kind of genre by genre, I think it ranges from. I think kind of in the kind of factual space, it has been kind of 1 in 3. I think in kind of the scripted space with Cameron and Anne, it's kind of more like 1 in 6, 1 in 7. That's kind of concerted development spend. So it's an imprecise science, but anything between 1 to 3 to 1 to 6, I think is a good one. Certainly in my mind. The shows I'm commissioning for 8 o'clock, I've got a very clear plan that kind of, in terms of the ones I've commissioned and put out, 1 in 3 of them would work, and that would be kind of quite successful, and 1 in 3 of them would come back, and I'd be very happy with that. The interesting thing about what we're doing at 8 o'clock is we're being very specific that all the shows we're commissioning there, and we've commissioned a number of them, but we're still hungry for more. They have to be returnable, and they have to be returnable in high volume. So we're commissioning a range of shows. So we've commissioned kind of 7 or 8 so far, and we've still got more we need in this kind of 8 o'clock space. And we're commissioning them in runs of kind of 6 to 8. But everything we're commissioning has the potential to play in very high volume in year 2 and year 3. And I've worked in development, and actually that's an easy thing to say, but it's quite tricky to kind of achieve, to actually come up with a show that can play for 20 episodes in year 4. And we're putting a real kind of premium on that kind of content. And so the idea is that we're kind of building this engine that over time can lead to fewer, bigger, returning brands at 8 o'clock. So there's a big win really for us, but also for the producers who can kind of crack that 8 o'clock and then kind of have an asset that they can play in very high volume. So we need more of them, please.
And on that front, would you ever take an idea from a startup, an indie?
Yeah. I mean, we've. I think I'm right in saying that the Cats project, which is our big natural history project with Patrick, I think that was a start-up. I think Baz and Nancy kind of came in without a production company, so we kind of paired them with Burning Bright. So we're very open to, the idea is the king, and if it comes from a small company and we love it, then that's not going to affect whether we commission it or not. We might pair them with other people, we might not. It kind of it depends on project by project.
Okay. Well, I think in a moment we're going to take some questions from you out there on the floor. So someone, I think, will bring you a microphone. Do put your hands up and then say who you are. But first, I think just one last question from the app, and it's what's the worst way to start a pitch to you?
I hate these questions because I used to work in development, and it's tough. It's tough coming up with ideas. It's tough pitching. So there's no, I don't talk about don't do this, don't do that. There's always different ways of pitching. Essentially, if the idea is good, if you're passionate, then that's the best thing. And actually, don't fret about kind of the wrong way to start or anything. Just believe in the idea and love your idea, and that will come through.
Okay. On that positive note, any questions here? Can I, this lady here in the front?
Hello, Adam.
Hi,
Tara Conlon, Media Guardian. Could I just ask a couple of things? Could you just clarify something about James Corden? Just when you said you're pretty confident with the next series, is he actually signed up to? Just to clarify that quickly, could you also bring us up to speed on what's happening with Carl Pilkington, and also just talking about, sorry, being a bit greedy, the McTaggart. Obviously, what David Abraham said about yesterday, saying that corporate America had a different attitude towards experimentation and risk-taking to that in the UK. Wild things, giant squirrels, that seems quite risk-taking to me, but I'm just looking for your response to that, please, in the position that you're in.
Oh, blimey, Tara, three questions. James, he's going to be doing the next series. We're pretty sure about that. And like I say, we've got another, I think, 2 commissioned. From everything he's saying, he loves doing that show, so we're pretty hopeful about that. Would love him to kind of carry on, and pretty hopeful that he will, and I've got no reason to believe he wouldn't. The McTaggart and the corporate America and kind of risk-taking, I don't really have a view on that. There's some brilliant stuff that comes out of America, so they must be taking risks. Some of the shows we saw in the screenings were pretty out there, actually, so I kind of thought, actually, the range of shows that are being commissioned for the networks in America, there was some kind of, what they call them big swings. There was some big kind of, interesting stuff happening there. Is it different from what we're doing? Don't know, but, like I say, everything's a risk, and, certainly I think that kind of with Baz and with Wild Things, we're in a good place there.
Okay, I'd like to take, if there's a TV person out there.
Tara's a TV person.
Yes, I know, but she's also.
Yeah, Carl. We're talking with Carl. We're very positive about another moaning. So fingers crossed on that one.
Okay, up the back there. Thank you. And just a quick reminder, we haven't got a huge amount of time left on the panel, so if you could keep the question quite brief, that'd be great.
Hello, Amy Boscombe from LA Productions. Just going back to what you were saying about drama, obviously that's a bit of a nut to crack in getting a returnable drama for Sky One. Is there anything that you learnt from The Smoke that you might apply going forward?
I think that I think in terms of kind of returnability, kind of The Smoke had everything there. The Smoke, I love The Smoke, and that when I talked about kind of really difficult decisions about what not to bring back, that was a really difficult decision to take. I think kind of all eyes now are on Critical, so there's a big session afterwards with Jed where he's talking about Critical, which is our new drama for the new year. And the concept there is that every episode is told in real time in a major trauma unit. So that has all the elements of kind of returnability. So I think, The Smoke, there's no question that structured could return. I think kind of Critical feels like a kind of machine that kind of is probably, if anything, more equipped to in its structure to kind of run in high volume. So, you know, there's two questions there, two issues there, two answers really. One is a show designed so that it can return? And I think both with the smoke and critical, that is the case. And then the question, will it return? Well, it kind of just depends on how the customers and audiences respond to it, I guess.
Okay, just another question, if we have anyone out there? Nope. Goodness me, come on. Right, none of you are brave enough. Okay, so let's take one more from the app here, which is one which is here about this is quite an interesting one actually. How do you see Sky's role in supporting and cultivating new and existing creative talent like British directors and writers? Because I think that's what people have been discussing, is that in America there's perhaps more of a system for bringing people up through the ranks. Is that something you think is
I mean, really, you know, I kind of defer to the commissioners for those kind of issues. I mean, they're closer to the whole kind of practice. And in the world of, you know, in the world of drama, I've not commissioned drama before, and so I kind of look to Cameron and Anne to kind of really, you know, really kind of crack those kind of issues and answer those issues. You know, I think, you know, I said previously that I was quite taken with the fact that at Sky we're not called channel controllers, we're called channel directors. And actually you kind of think, well, that's kind of a, you know, for me that feels a kind of better name, really. You know, I see my job as actually identifying the direction of the channel, and I think I've been pretty clear in that. And then it's for our genre teams that we work very closely with to kind of then talk to you guys to actually, you know, how you can kind of articulate that and structure that such that kind of we get the kind of the best ideas through that kind of work kind of editorially and creatively with the commissioning teams and are consistent with the direction I'm setting to the channel. So that felt like a bit of a fudge, but you know, I'm kind of serious in the sense that, you know, we work really closely with the, you know, all the channel directors work very closely with the genre commissioners, and we have kind of distinct roles there.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed to Adam and to you, the audience, of course, the festival organisers and the sponsors of this session broadcast. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.